Hi, this is Brenda and Elaine.
Welcome to our After the Show episode, where we go deeper into what we learned from our conversations with guests. It's so fun to talk to a younger person to get their perspective just on everything. Claudia, she's struggled with allergies her whole life.
I loved seeing what a proactive problem solver she was. She didn't really get down about all the challenges she had with her health. She's just like, let me find an allergist. Let me research what I might do to feel better. And I thought, well, that's really the right attitude. And it's good to see her taking charge. Maybe some of that credit goes to her mom.
But also, I think being someone who just doesn't know life without those struggles, you have to move forward. And she probably learned that early on, as a young kid, going out on the playground with watery eyes or going to the nurse's office before gym. It just became part of her way of being in the world. So that can be helpful, even though it doesn't make it easy.
Yeah, like when she said, "Well, I can deal with hives, but I just can't deal with, not being able to breathe." I was like, "Wow, I must be a wimp because I hate when I get hives." So, but again, it's all relative to what you get used to and what you've had to deal with.
Everyone says they have allergies. For some people, they get worse as they get older, or some people develop new ones as they get older. And I've also heard that, well, COVID obviously changes your body and can make you react differently to different stimulus. And I think menopause can do that too.
Yeah,
So,
I'm blaming menopause for my allergies getting worse.
I had never heard of some of the drugs. They seem to keep progressing and finding new things. I had not heard of the Zolair, I think, which is the shot she says
Yeah, it
she's
sounds
on.
like
Yeah.
pretty serious medicine too.
It sounds like it really works for her.
There's no one right answer. It was interesting that initially she didn't want to take that injection. And then as she saw the quality of life that she was having with her allergies really being out of control, she weighed the pros and cons and decided for now that it's the right thing to do. And I think those are sometimes tough decisions that we have to make with our health is the trade-offs between how am I without this medicine? How am I with the medicine? And what are the other risks that the medicine brings?
In different seasons of life, different things are priorities. And, it's a constant evaluation of what's right at this time.
Yeah.
So I think she did a great job of trying to balance that in her own life. So changing doctors, moving states, changing jobs, all those things, make you have to relook at your insurance. And it can be the full-time job when you have medications like that. So having to always be aware of interactions between medications and how they will make you feel is another thing that you got to stay on top of.
Right. So you don't seem to have allergies too bad right now.
I don't, I do feel it, but I don't know if it's gotten lessened as I've gotten older, but I rarely take a allergy pill.
I feel like my allergies have gotten worse as I've gotten older. Like they were bad when
Older.
we were kids, then they were fine when I was in my 20s, 30s, whatever. But lately, I cannot be in the house with someone with a cat or a dog.
That's funny. I remember this story. Like Charles says he doesn't have allergies, but he to this day talks about the one time that we went to visit you in your apartment in New
When
Jersey.
I had a cat,
Yeah, when you had a
yeah.
cat and thought he was going to die.
Then maybe you have allergies.
That was like the one and only time. And now you used to have a cat.
I know. And now I can't be around a cat. I mean, I lived with a cat who slept in my bed. So to go from that to not being able to spend 10 minutes in the home of someone with cats, something's changed in my body.
Right.
Let's just call it menopause.
As a child, I feel like, and I could be remembering wrong, like I had worse allergies and you had worse
You
asthma.
did.
Um, I remember only one time I had like a asthma event.
It was more than asthma. It was like almost anaphylaxis. Was this when we lived in New York? I
Yeah.
remember that. I remember that.
And I can't remember exactly what happened except that I couldn't breathe.
Today, my hypothesis is you either got stung by something or you breathed something because you came in, you couldn't breathe, and you were turning blue. I just remember being like,
Okay.
"Woo!"
Yeah. And then, like, that was the one and only time I ever had a asthma kind of event.
Because that's not how your allergies showed up.
Right, mine was just, like, runny nose
Right.
and the normal congestion kinda things.
But I had bad asthma when we lived in that house. I can just
So
really remember laying on the bed, like, I can't breathe. Oh, and I always tell the story, it's no judgment, but it just makes me laugh, where dad would be smoking, we'd be in the car, and I'd be like, I can't breathe. And they'd say, put your window down.
Live and learn. You know, we do learn as the parents and as individuals. And actually, medicine has progressed a
Right.
lot.
And public information, like secondhand smoke.
Yeah,
Nobody was talking about secondhand smoke back then, right?
right. And you
Well, we
probably didn't have a seatbelt on either.
You're right. I'm sure they have a seatbelt on. I'm sure our kids will be having a podcast 20 years from now saying, well, my mother.
All the crazy things that they had to survive, but we did. We did survive.
That is a takeaway I will take from Claudia. The idea of letting kids, even little kids, speak for themselves and present their symptoms to the doctor so that they build that skill of engaging with the doctors and advocating for themselves.
And learning how to communicate how they feel,
Right.
and actually taking the time to discern that, as we've heard from other one
Mhm.
else too.
Yeah. The last thing I want to say is it made me really happy to hear her say that she went out and searched for a Facebook support group because she had heard another guest on Body Wealth mention that they found a support group for their condition. I thought, well, that's a nice example of what we hope to do with our podcast is inspire people to think about things that they can do for their health. So that was nice to hear.
So, yeah, it definitely lets us know that we're doing some things right.
It was wonderful to see her. I'm so happy to see just such an accomplished, smart, young Black woman.
Yeah, who's taking care of her health early,
Mhm.
you know, being intentional and deliberate about doing that, so that's what we want.
Yay, Claudia, and yay, Claudia's mom. Let us know what you learned from this guest.
If you want to support Body Wealth, please subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. We'd also love it if you give us a 5-star rating and write a review letting us know what you love about the show.
The Body Wealth podcast shares personal stories to inspire you. It does not constitute medical advice. For that, we encourage you to work with a trusted healthcare provider.